Well, hello everybody, and welcome once again to another edition of Pray on This. I'm your host, John Pray, and before we get going, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you know every time I drop a video. Well, what am I going to talk about today? Well, as you all know, I was busy looking after family the last couple of days, looking after my grandchildren during the March break, and I've taken a little bit of time off. However, there's also something else coming up in my life. For those of you who have paid attention, you'll know that I'm engaged to be married, and I will be getting married on May the 19th. This past weekend, my brother and a couple of my close friends, we were having a conference call about what we should do for a boys' night before the wedding. Now, it's kind of amazing the difference that exists between getting married in your early 20s and what you do for a boys' night then and what you do for a boys' night now. I think we've got it down to getting a good bottle of scotch for a few of the guys and a good bottle of bourbon for myself and my brother, and a couple of Cuban cigars sitting around, telling stories, laughs, and jokes, and having a few drinks until we either get too tired to continue or call it a night. But during this phone call, as inevitable when my friends and I start talking, politics came up. And one of my friends is very much a liberal. And he knows my politics and who I support and what I do for a living. And he asked me, he said, "This doesn't look good for my guy. And you know I really don't like Trudeau, but is the party going to lose the next election?" And I said to him, I said, "It wasn't looking good for your guy before the Chinese interference scandal broke. I mean, now it just looks even worse." And when he asked me to elaborate, I sat there and said, "Well, really, like there's five of us on the line here. Who's doing better today than they were before Trudeau came to power?" I'm doing better, but there's several reasons for that. I have a different career and I have a different spouse. But everybody else who's basically lived the same life for the past 8 years, well, they're not doing better. The country is broken. It feels that way. You can't get a passport. You have trouble traveling out of the airports. There's just a general malaise. The bail system is screwed up. The justice system seems screwed up. And the liberals' way of dealing with crime is to not deal with crime. No, it's to make it easier to get bail or to um, have lighter sentences for using a gun in the commission of crime, and to make it look like they're doing something. It's let's go attack, legal licensed gun owners. The wrong people are being persecuted, and quite truthfully, his wokeness is just out of control. When we really got into it, I'm like, you tell me, what is it you actually like about the Liberal Party? And what I got told was, well, it's who I've always voted for. And I don't know if I can vote conservative. Well, when I think about this, I vote based on who will help me the best. And I don't see where the Liberals actually help a lot of people. They talk a great game, but time and time again, they raise taxes, they cause inflation, they are not great stewards of the economy. They can say they are, but, even the Chrétien Liberals, when they balanced the budget, they didn't do it by curbing their own spending. They did it by downloading all kinds of traditionally federal government responsibilities onto the provinces. And then the provinces, in turn, downloaded that onto the municipalities. We, the people, still got screwed because our taxes went up at all three levels. And we didn't get anything in return. Right now, when I look at Justin Trudeau, and all the avenues of government that he looks after, and that in the ways it affects our lives. No, it's not him who's creating a lack of homes being built. That's done at the municipal level. But he is bringing in 500,000 immigrants a year into a country where we don't have enough homes already for our people. Supply and demand says that if something's in short supply, it's going to cost more. So he is pushing the housing crisis. It's just simple economics. If you create a lot of money out of nothing, then all you're really doing is causing the prices of the existing commodities to go up. If you don't create things that money buys, you just create money that buys things, well, then that money's not worth as much. He's done everything he can to stand in the way of resource development, forestry, mining, oil and gas exploration. He puts up all kinds of things that he has your back, and yet if you're an oil worker, if you're a miner, if you're a logger, no, he doesn't. And now he's even after heavy industry, all in the name of climate change. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Trudeau, we could disappear off the planet tomorrow. China or India would fill the 1.725% of global carbon we put into the atmosphere annually in about 3 months. Your ideas are idiotic. They're ideological. And I can't bring this point more home than if we take a look at two subjects. The first, Indigenous truth and reconciliation. In 2015, while running to be the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau came out and talked all about how he was going to get rid of the boil water advisory on Canadian Indian reservations. He said he would have it done by 2018. Well, it's 2023, and there's still 30 plus reservations that have boil water advisories in effect. That's 5 years. That's $1 short and a day late, or in this case, 5 years late. Then we take a look at the creation of Truth and Reconciliation Day. He tells people he's not able to attend any events because he's in Ottawa working hard. But when you take a look at where he really is, he was on a beach in Tofino, British Columbia, surfing. Finally, when we take a look at the unmarked graves that were found in British Columbia, he virtue signaled. He brought up the possibility that these children were murdered. Well, we don't know what happened to these children. We don't know if they died of starvation, disease, or if they were murdered. What we do know is that they lie in unmarked graves, not a mass grave. We also know they've never been exhumed, and therefore no forensic autopsy done by anthropologists who would understand causes of death from bones that old have been done. We have no idea what has happened, nor have we done anything that would repatriate these children's bodies back to their parents or their living relatives. But he sure as hell took the opportunity to take a knee in the field of unmarked graves and place a teddy bear. The second is women. When he was elected in 2015, Justin Trudeau claimed he was the feminist prime minister. He was a feminist. His cabinet was 50% women, even though 24% of women made up his caucus. So by extension, he already ruled out people who were in caucus who may have been more talented and better equipped to be a minister, and put them aside to hire a woman because he was virtue signaling. And then some of the very, very good women he did hire, he didn't like it when they properly managed their departments and called him out on his interference. So he fired them, like Jane Philpott, Judy Wilson-Raybould. There's others that he has done despicable things to, and they've left politics altogether. Or what about this reporter in British Columbia before he ever got into politics who he came onto and groped and then said, "Oh, if I had known you were a reporter for a national newspaper, I never would have touched you." Only to say, when confronted about it years later, "Oh, well, she experienced it differently." The man is a clown. That's all I can say about him, is he's a complete and total clown. He is a child who has never had any real responsibility in his life, and it shows in his actions as our prime minister. The India trip, where he wore costumes after costume after costume. He went so far as to dress his wife and his children in costumes and danced, and invited a convicted terrorist as part of his entourage to go with him. It wasn't received well in India. And I can honestly say, if that was someone else, someone who was a Justin Trudeau opponent, he would have come right out with the woke brigades going that, "God, that's cultural appropriation and it's wrong." Before he got into politics, the man wore blackface so many times he can't remember. And I'm not talking, Al Jolson just darkening the face. No, he went so far as to darken the whole body and stick a banana in his pants. He did this too as a late 20s, early 30s man. When I compare my own life, I had responsible jobs. I had children. I owned a home. I had 2 cars, and I had a budget that I had to work within, because I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth and a trust fund that was built upon an oil company. The more I look at Justin Trudeau, the more I understand why the country is in the position it's in. The first term he was in office, he sent out a memo to all senior civil servants that said, and I quote, "If you receive an email, a phone call, or a memo from Gerald Butts, you are to treat it as if that memo came from me." In other words, Justin wasn't being prime minister. Justin had the title. Justin loved showing up for his press conferences and ribbon cuttings, kissing babies, and all of those selfies. But when it came down to being an effective manager, he's not only not qualified for the job, he doesn't want the job. He has other people do his work for him. And even now, when we take a look at the Chinese election interference scandal, we're 4 weeks in now. We're 10 days since he said he would hire a special rapporteur, which we still haven't figured out what that actually is yet. This is still Justin Trudeau just sidestepping his responsibilities, because the only man in Canada who can call an inquiry is the Prime Minister. We all know what he's trying to do. He's trying to find someone who will be sympathetic to his cause. All I do know is that this week, Abacus Data, Nanos, and Main Street have all dropped polls. And what is crystal clear is that the Conservatives are holding in the mid-30s, between 34 and 38%. The Liberals are in the high 20s, between 27 and 30%, and the NDP is in the low 20s, between 20 and 22%. And the big one is the Bloc Québécois. They're polling 9% nationally, which means they're polling at about 35% in Quebec. The time has never been better to tear down the Liberal government and force them into an election, because right now the vote splits will not favor the Liberals. They will lose the government. And they are trying so desperately to hide from us just how bad this Chinese election interference is. If we take a look at the work of the current committee in Ottawa with all of their filibustering. This isn't about stopping Katie Telfer from testifying. This is trying to drag things out, run out the clock, and hoping that we will all forget. Well, I'm sorry. To my friend who is the Liberal, yeah, the time has run out. Your Liberal Party is going to get their butt kicked. Pierre Poilievre is going to be the next Prime Minister of Canada. Jagmeet Singh may actually be the next leader of the opposition. And Justin Trudeau is going to disappear into obscurity and disgrace. That, as always, is Pray on This. Before I go, I'd like to give a shout out to the Pleb Reporter for his assistance and his encouragement. And I encourage my viewers to go check out the Pleb Reporter, and I hope he sends some more my way. As always, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And I hope to see you again a few more times, although I'm planning a rather lovely weekend with my wife away. Have a great rest of the week. Have a lovely March break, and I'll see you when I see you.